You know, we can put all this pressure on ourselves. I've had this happen with shows, and I'm sure your dad would say the same thing. Like, you get an opportunity where you've done this thousands of times.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden someone's in the audience, and now you're like, I don't know how to do it, you know?
Yeah.
But that's a big thing of just, I think, encouraging yourself and saying, look, I've put in the work, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And also just treating celebrities like people. They're just people.
Very true.
You know?
Yeah.
Geek out when you get home that you just, put dots on Robert Downey Jr., but treat him just like a normal dude when he...
Exactly, yeah, that's true. Keeping your cool is an important part.
I want to take a quick minute and thank all of the producers of the show. That's right, we've got producers, folks like you and I, who just love these conversations and want to help keep them going. This is a free program. It's going to continue to be free because we've got people called the producers who kick in a little dough each month. $1, $2, $5. We just had a Patreon. Mr. Mark Cook give $10 a month, which is so rad. That's like Netflix level. Can't believe it. Anyway, if you enjoy this program and want to just say a little thank you, kick in a little bit of dough, we sure do appreciate it. Our goal is to initially get 1,000, say it with me, 1,000 people. 1,000 people giving just $1 a month. That doesn't seem like much. It's $12 a year. That's like 2 Subway sandwiches, or 1 if you add avocado, get chips and a drink. But it makes a huge difference for us, and really helps offset the cost of the equipment and putting these out online and the website and all the nonsense we got to do just to get these to you guys. So thanks so much. If you want to be a producer, go to abouttobreakpodcast.com. That's abouttobreakpodcast.com. Click on the Become a Producer button, and you too can be a producer of the show.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Well, folks, you made it. It's episode 39 of the About to Break podcast, and we've got some really exciting things coming up, things that I'm really pumped about. One thing is that we're going to start doing an extra episode every week. It's going to be a 5-minute episode, and we're calling it 5-Minute Mondays. It starts this Monday. So when you wake up in the morning, it will be like a little adult version of the Tooth Fairy. You wake up and there's a special little treat, but instead of under your pillow, it's in your podcast feed. That's right. It's going to be a little 5-minute episode, something cool that I've learned from one of these conversations. So a little nugget to get you going in the morning on Monday. I'm excited. So look for that. A couple of shows coming up. September 10th, this next Sunday, I'm going to be hosting with my buddy Eddie Firth, once again, our Jokers and Aces show at the Nerdist Showroom in Meltdown Comics in Hollywood, California. That's going to be 7 o'clock showtime. And you can get tickets on the link on this podcast. Discounted tickets. I think it's like $8 if you go online, buy them ahead of time. So come check that out. That's this Sunday, 7 p.m. We have some incredible performers, great magicians and comedians performing together. And then I just got added to the Grab Bag show on September 17th. That's going to be in Santa Monica with Adam Grabowski, who's been featured here on the podcast. Going to be performing his show on the 17th in Santa Monica in the evening. And then also the 27th, I'll be performing at Scott Neary's Booby Trap here in Hollywood, California. So come check those out. Dates for those are all listed on abouttobreakpodcast.com, or you can go to taylorhughes.com/live and check those out. Hope to see you at one of those shows. And if you do come, please say hi. Please let me know that you heard about it on the podcast. This episode is a really cool one. I was excited to sit down with Tyler Cordova. He's an incredible visual effects artist, does special effects in the movies, which if you've listened on here before, you know that was what I wanted to do when I was just a little kid. And he's actually doing it. So I geeked out a little bit with him. Let's see, he was a visual effects coordinator for Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the last Thor movie. He's working on the new Thor movie that they're finishing up right now. And then he just signed a deal with Disney. He's going to be going to China to film their live action version of Mulan, and we talk all about that. Great conversation, a really incredible guy. Talks about his journeys up and down and all the things that he's gone through to get where he's at, and I just love he's still pressing through and still working to do the thing that he loves. So you guys are going to enjoy episode 39 of the About to Break podcast. Starts right now. Well, hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host Taylor Hughes, and this week I'm sitting down with Tyler Cordova. How you doing, Tyler?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm gonna try to not super geek out, and here's why. When I was a kid, I was trying to decide. I either wanted to do magic or I wanted to do visual effects for movies. And so, like, you do the other thing that I was always I was like that. I was the kid who would like go to Blockbuster and rent Michael Jackson's The Making of Thriller, so I could see him do all the makeup and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, they're kind of closely related, sort of. One is done in real time, and the other is done in the post world.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true. How did you get started in entertainment and visual effects and all that? What was your first?
Well, my dad actually is a magician as well.
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up with the entertainment industry, sort of. And I've always been inclined to do something a little unconventional. So
yeah.
I've always loved movies. Growing up with my dad, especially, we're both really into movies, and he's kind of been my hero in that sense, where he's taken me to cinema quite often, and it's just a fun place to be. So
yeah,
I've always wanted to work in movies, and partially I kind of got lucky because I was chasing after going into film in any capacity whatsoever.
Right.
And so I volunteered a lot, doing film festivals and just making movies with my buddies or helping my buddies make movies.
And was that just like whatever role was needed at the time? Like you need me on a camera or audio or visual? Like
yeah, definitely. And I helped a buddy of mine actually quite a long time ago do some really early CG stuff back when it was it was almost impossible to do at home, but I was just trying some stuff out, and
That's crazy, man. I've known your dad for a while because he's a magician and does a lot of different stuff in entertainment. And I remember him telling me years ago about stuff that you were doing, and he'd be like, I don't even know how he did it. Like,
yeah, it's true. It's you kind of just have to go out there and find it, and not wait for it to come to you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. What did that journey look like for you? I mean, did you go the route of like?
Yeah, well, I went into film school.
Yeah.
And I actually went into college kind of late in life because I got married at a young age and had a kid at a young age, and so all those kinds of things take up a lot of your time in life. So I spent a lot of time figuring out what I was doing, what my next step was, and I've always loved film, so I went to college again to go into film, and I happened to just randomly meet a producer at the time while I was in school. I was operating a Montessori school. Who is now my ex, but she.
And you guys were running the school, like.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were running the school, and so a producer happened to be in town, and he enrolled his daughter into the school.
Yeah.
So we kind of hit it off, and he was like, "Oh, what do you want to do eventually? Is this your end goal?" And I said, "Well, actually, no. I'm in film school at the moment." And he's like, "Oh, wow, what a coincidence. We're looking for somebody like you to come join us. What do you think?"
No way.
Yeah.
I love this, man, because I always ask people what their journey is like, not because if it worked for you, it's going to work for somebody else. I just love that everybody's journey is so different, and it's almost like the thing you try to plan and make happen, it comes some other direction.
Yeah, it's true. It's crazy.
So this producer just says, "Hey, we're looking for somebody."
Yeah.
And what was that first role you played with them?
I was just a production assistant in the visual effects world.
Yeah.
So it was a big movie. It was Iron Man 3. It just happened to be in the little town that I was based out of.
It's incredible.
Randomly. Yeah. And
what town was this that you were out of?
Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So just really random, and it worked out, and I've been doing it ever since. I loved it and continue to love it, and I've since moved out to LA and just have thankfully kept a gig going.
Yeah.
The entire time, and it's
that's rad, man. And like this is within a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what would the Iron Man 3, would that have been like 2013 or 2012, something like that?
It came out in 2013, so I think I started the project probably late 2011 or something like that, so I spent a little time on it, and yeah.
When you first jumped in, so I knew you were passionate about it and did, like, a lot of the stuff you were doing was probably, I mean, in the different things that I've worked on, when you don't have access to all the gear and all that, you learn little tweaks and how to, like,
totally.
Put it together with duct tape. So then, like, what was that like when you went from doing it on your own to going into a full production like Iron Man 3?
It's funny because I thought in my head that when you go into the big time that everything changes, and it's just this beast that kind of takes care of itself, but it's just like the do-it-yourself projects. In a lot of ways, you have to have a drive and a passion to keep it going, and
that's rad.
To do more. And it's interesting. Film is film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you have to really want it all the time, because if you don't,
dude, talk about that. I love that.
Yeah. If you don't, if you don't really love it, then it's easy to fall off the wagon, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be the passion first and foremost. It can't be about fame. It can't be about money.
Exactly.
There's a lot more easy ways to make money.
Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah. In fact, before I did film, I was in the banking industry and stuff like that for a long time, and it's just, you can make money doing other things. And I could have stuck with that and eventually have made a lot of money, but it didn't fulfill me. So,
you just knew. You just were like, film is like where it's at.
Yeah, it's a creative endeavor, and it's my passion. It always has been since I was a kid.
And it was because your dad took you to see movies. Do you remember the first movie he took you to where you noticed like the visual effects or something that stood out to you, and you're like, oh, that's cool, I want to do that? Yeah,
it's funny because I just so happened to work in a lot of superhero genre type films, and when I was a teenager, I went to see, Spider-Man, like the first Spider-Man, and, the early Batman movies and stuff like that, and I just loved them, and the visual effects world kind of helps you escape in a way. Like the Lord of the Rings movies are another one where
absolutely,
when you watch them, you really feel like you're in Middle Earth, and I've always loved it, and I love the ability to create something that wouldn't exist otherwise and escape for a couple hours, and now I'm lucky enough to be a part of productions that get to do that for people around the world.
It's incredible, man, and you get to not only experience that yourself and like the behind the scenes making, but then to hear, like, it's got to be crazy when you're watching TV and someone comes on to talk about the movie that you were a part of, right?
Yeah, it's true. And the cool thing about visual effects is we're around for pre-production, production, and post-production often.
Yeah.
So we get to, for example, I just finished up Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah.
And I was on that. I was one of the first people on, so I got to see...
From like the inception of it, huh?
Yeah, from the inception. I mean, James Gunn, the director, has been on. He's been on a lot longer than I was. But when he started to come up with sequences and rough ideas, we pre-vised it. So we got to work with artists to help the director envision the film before it's even shot.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool to see that process, because we get to see the film from really early stages when it's kind of rough and the director's starting to form ideas to the finished product when you see it in theaters and you get the full experience there.
So the director's got the screenplay and he's gone through it, and then he comes to you and says, here's what I'm thinking, and you just scene by scene kind of go through. Is that like, what's the next step? Like storyboarding, or how do you guys?
Yeah. So typically, and it depends on every project, but in pre-production, the director usually has the screenplay and he'll give it to our department. In our department, it varies in size, but in pre-production, there's usually about 4 or 5 of us.
Yeah.
And so it's our job to take what's written down on the screenplay and try to create something visually. So we usually give that over to a previs company, which is full of artists that will help build assets and models. And essentially, what previs looks like is kind of like Nintendo 64 graphic video game.
Okay, so it's like really real rough.
Yeah, really rough. But it's basically just to help the director get a story going and see what he wants to do and get camera angles and moves and stuff in his head for when we shoot. So so we often use a third-party company to do the previs, and it's our job to help facilitate notes and getting our artists what they need to get the job done, and talking directly to the director to make sure we're just getting everything he needs. So my role in the process is less of a creative one, where I don't do the actual artistry, but I'm more of trying to be a producer one day, where I'm shuffling people and organizing things.
And a liaison between the artist and the director, and just making sure that what's in his mind gets onto the screen.
Exactly, which I love, because
that's so wild, man.
Yeah, it's cool to be a part of that.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Have you had moments where you're trying? Well, I'm sure you've had this, but like, how do you decide what is going to be CG, what is going to be live action, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a really good question. Usually, when we get a script, we in pre-production we break it down, and based on what's written in the screenplay, we kind of have to make some assumptions a little bit. For example, if we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, and the pages say Baby Groot is inside the Milano eating candy. Yeah. We know that's probably going to be a full CG shot, or maybe we'll get what we call a plate, which means the live action element that we shoot.
Yeah.
We may shoot an empty chair that's wiggling around as if it's inside the Milano, but we know for a fact that there's no such Baby Groot in the world, so we know to budget for a CG Baby Groot in that scene.
Yeah.
So in the early stages, we just have to do a really rough idea of what we think is going to happen. And then obviously once we shoot it, we get a much better idea once we see the dailies, and then we can break it down even further.
Yeah. And how long from the time you guys jump on a project generally are you working on that project till completion?
Yeah, and it really varies because there are different roles in visual effects that require different things. For example, if you're an artist, you usually don't jump on until the very end of the project when it's about to be wrapped up. But what I love about my position is I kind of help. I'm not a producer; I'm a production manager, but I kind of help the producer with organizing everything. And so my role is I get to be around usually from the beginning of a movie to the end.
That's rad, man.
But it depends. Like right now, I'm on Thor 3, and I jumped on towards the very end because they needed somebody like me with my history and experience at Marvel to jump in and help out. So, I kind of I get lucky sometimes, and I get to jump around to different projects and different areas of production.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
And we were just talking. You were going to be in LA for a little longer, and then now you're actually.
Yeah, that's true. I was slated to jump onto another project here in LA, but I'm actually going to jump over to New Zealand probably around November time to shoot Mulan. Yeah, the live-action remake of Mulan.
My 12-year-old daughter is going to lose her mind because my daughter is like the Disney fact lady. Yeah. Like she can tell you every fact about every Disney movie ever.
Yeah.
And she has been talking nonstop about they're going to make a live-action Mulan.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it.
Have you been to New Zealand before?
No, this will be my first time. I haven't actually done a lot of international travel, so this is a particularly really cool project for me.
That's rad, man.
Yeah,
that's rad. It's so beautiful and
I'm hoping to even see some Middle Earth type of scenery.
Oh, totally, man. Get to do a little Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, kind of geek out a little bit.
You'll have to do some like Instagram shots where you recreate.
Yeah,
standing on the ledge.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious about, because in entertainment in general, but then also with, production and video and all of that.
Yeah.
Your schedule is not like a typical 9 to 5, I'm guessing.
No, it really varies. Thankfully, usually in pre-production is not too bad.
Yeah.
It can sometimes be a 9 to 5 sort of thing.
Yeah.
Usually just because we're waiting on the story elements to be completed before we can really jump in and dive into the deep end and really get going on things. So pre-production is usually pretty good. Production, once we get shooting, when you're on a set, the hours are pretty crazy usually. It's sometimes can be a 12-hour day, if not longer, and you start your day like at 7 a.m. or something. So those days can be pretty long, and then once you jump into post-production, when you first start post, it's not too bad, but once you get closer and closer to those deadlines, and when marketing comes knocking on your door and they're like, "Oh, we need trailers, and we need some Comic-Con footage or whatever."
Yeah.
Then deadlines get brought up, and you have to work hard to meet them. So,
yeah, and I'm sure you have to deal with like re-edits and things where it's like
a lot of that.
You're like, it's done. This is great, and then it's like we need this entire thing blue.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. Yeah, you're not wrong.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, so we're the go-to department for those, emergency situations usually. What's amazing to me is we always get it done.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, a lot of hard work goes into it, but we always come out with a finished product. So that's great.
That's great, dude. Yeah. I know that people are probably listening right now and going like, this sounds like the best job ever, and like, I wish I could get that, and all of this. What is, like, in your position or your industry, what is one of the biggest challenges that you face?
Sure.
Just in...
honestly, the hours is probably up there, if not maybe the number one challenge, because we do work so much sometimes. It's hard to balance a personal life with a work life when, occasionally, especially when you get towards the very end, when the movie's about to release, it's not uncommon to work 7 days a week, and it's often 12 to 14 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I work with some amazing producers that try their best to not have that happen, but it does happen.
Yeah.
It's you have to learn to balance things, and I have a core group of really good friends that I keep.
Yeah.
And we all are in the industry and kind of do similar things, so we understand what it's like.
That's good. Yeah.
But it's hard to maintain relationships with somebody that works in a normal 9-to-5 gig.
Yeah, totally, man. Well, and it's helpful to have people around you that understand it.
Yeah, totally.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even in our with our family, like, I've been doing this a long time, and they still plan birthday parties on Saturdays, and it's like, I'm out of town usually. you know.
Yeah, that's very true. And like we were talking about, I'm about to hit the road to New Zealand for 7-ish months. So that's a long time to be away, and I'll be around the other side of the world. So it creates challenges, and as long as you go at things with a mentality of being a problem solver, and you can get over anything. But it just creates obstacles.
Yeah, totally, man.
Yeah.
What do you do to help balance yourself, other than, obviously, like, rest and all that? Do you have hobbies that you...
Yeah, I love music, and whenever I'm getting stressed out, I love to come home and just bring out one of the guitars and strum a little tune and relax a bit. I also love food. That's one of the great things about being in LA.
LA is the best food.
Yeah, there's some really good food. Yeah, I'm actually here in Echo Park, and there's some great little restaurants here.
You're in a great spot, man.
Yeah.
There's some really cool, unique stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And you're literally like, are you a Dodger fan?
Yeah, I've been to a few Dodger games. Yeah.
You could not be closer to Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, it's true. It's kind of fun. That's another fun thing to randomly do, is like, I can just walk to baseball games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This is a really good spot at LA. One thing for people who aren't from LA, they may not understand, like, in New York, everything is really close together.
Yeah.
And in LA, there's all these really cool areas and neighborhoods, but it's so spread out. So
it's true. It's hard to find places or areas where you can just even walk to go find some place to eat.
Totally, man. Totally.
Yeah.
So you're getting ready to go November.
Yeah.
When does production finish up on Thor then? Because you're...
Sure, yeah. Well, Thor comes out the first weekend here domestically in November.
Okay.
So I will probably be done with my part, and it varies for every project, but I'll probably be done about a month before that release.
Okay.
It'll work out. I'll get about a month off before hitting the road again.
That's all. What do you pack when you're going for 7 months?
That's a good question. I'm not sure even, because this is my first big trip out of the country. So we'll see. Hopefully I can make it work, so it's not every single suitcase I own coming with me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, when you were a kid, did you ever get into, like, I know your pops does magic and all kinds of variety artists, really.
It's true.
Did you ever get into any of that stuff when you were a kid, or give it a go? Or?
I never did. I've always it's fitting that I'm in visual effects, doing stuff behind the scenes, because that's always been my interest. My dad has always been more of the showman. He's very good at what he does, but I'm not one to be in the spotlight per se. I like to be the behind the scenes guy and help out with things that nobody typically gets to see.
Right.
Yeah.
That's rad, man. It's always kind of weird to ask someone, because obviously you love what you're doing and are having great opportunities. Is there something that you haven't done yet, or a project, type of project, or a certain role you'd like to move into at some point? That
it's funny because I have done a lot of different things in the film industry, and I love visual effects. It's kind of what I believe is my calling. But I think we should always grow and pursue more things, and never just be satisfied with one particular thing. Because that's what keeps us alive. And so one day, eventually, I want to be a producer in visual effects, and if I'm ever lucky enough to have that happen, then I'll aim to be an executive producer for a film, and then strive and keep working hard to push further, and who knows, maybe be a studio head one day or something. But
that's incredible, man.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. And the same goes for anybody that wants it. If you work hard enough, I think you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
And if you want it bad enough, it'll come find you.
Man, I was just listening to an interview with Seinfeld, and he said, you want to know who makes it in entertainment? It's not the most successful, or not the smartest people, not the most talented people. It's the people that want it more than anything.
Yeah, it's true.
Because there's so much stuff that happens that if you don't really want to do it, you're just gonna.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think being wise with your pursuits. And I think one of the things in the past that really helped me out is I did, before I even got into the film industry, I did some research about where productions are shooting and where places are going. Yeah. Because I'm actually originally from Seattle, and I've lived around the country for a while. So I just did some research, and I found that little old Wilmington, North Carolina was home to a lot of productions that were shooting. Wow. So I went to film school out there with the idea of, well, hopefully one day I can get into that market and find something. And it just so happened to work out for me.
But that's smart that you went to where it was happening.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the core things. If you want it bad enough, you gotta come up with unconventional means to find it, I guess. And
it's so good.
For me, I uprooted myself and moved to a place I had no idea was even on the map, and and sought it out. And I was lucky enough that it found me.
Yeah, and I mean, there is that element of luck, but you're onto something huge, man, with, like, if you're not there, when the opportunities come up, I mean, this is, I think Steve Martin said it, he was like, there's opportunities, but when they come up, you got to be within pointing distance. Yeah. So if you want to do stand-up comedy and you live in Wisconsin, you got to move.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I mean?
Very true. Yeah, and it's funny because LA is the film hub of the world, really.
It is.
If you really want to do film, you got to come to LA. That's, even though I was lucky and I found something in little old Wilmington, North Carolina, to keep going and to keep the passion and the jobs coming. I had to move yet again to LA and make that work. Yeah,
and make the sacrifice to say I'm gonna,
Yeah, it's not easy for sure. It's definitely not easy to move around.
What's one of the toughest things about moving?
I've done it so much. It's funny. I've moved so much that I'm so used to just having my core things that I can just throw in a box and take with me. And I've always yearned for the day where I can just settle down and call someplace home and, like, splurge a little and buy a lot of things that I don't always have to think about.
Patio furniture.
Exactly. Exactly. It's funny, in LA, you're lucky if you even have a patio.
Right, or a parking spot.
Yeah, exactly. I know, it's crazy. But, and I'm not even close to being there yet, but one day I hope to be successful enough to have a patio and, call one place home for a while and not have to go crazy too much, but yeah.
That's awesome, man. Are you able... So being in the know, and this is kind of a thing I get asked as a magician all the time, is people go, once you know how it's done, like once you've seen behind the curtain, do you still enjoy it the same way? Yeah. Like, are you able, when you go to a movie, your dad comes to town and you go see a movie that you weren't a part of, are you able to suspend disbelief, or do you go, I would have done that shot different?
That's a good question. It's a mixture of both. Because I think more than anything, I love a good story. So if I go to the movies and a story is speaking to me, I tend not to see the visual effects because I just am so engrossed in what's happening to the characters that even to this day, and that's what I love about films, you can just for 2 hours take a little vacation in your head and live out a different story. But I will say, if I'm watching a movie and it's not a very good one, I will pick it apart like crazy because
really,
if I'm not involved in the story, then everything doesn't look right to me.
See, that's huge, man. Because I've seen some movies where the effects are killer, but the story doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Ultimately, it's you're using the shots or the effects to present the story. So
yeah, that's true. And that's another good point, because sometimes the VFX looks amazing, but there's the stories in there. So
and sometimes it could be so good it just detracts.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's funny because I in my own opinion, I think that's where like the Lord of the Rings movies kind of went wrong. Like the original 3 I thought were exceptional, and
totally.
At least for me, it transported me, and I didn't think about the visual effects. And then when the Hobbit movies came out, they were trying new things, and it was 120 frames per second CG stuff, and it was it didn't speak as much to me. It was too much of a gimmicky thing, so I felt like
kind of jumped the shark.
Yeah, exactly.
With your role, it's interesting to me because I've heard people say this a lot in the industry, is like, you got to pick one thing and be the best at that one thing, right? But your role requires you to understand the language and the work that's involved for the artist, but also the world of the director and producers. So, like, how much of that was like natural for you, and how much of it was a learning process?
That's a very good question. In my own opinion, I think to be in the film industry, to some degree, you have to be a jack of all trades, because if somebody has a question and they don't know how to do it, they're going to come to somebody, and you're way better off if they're coming to you because you're their go-to guy. So if you don't know how to do something, you figure it out and you do it. So it's funny because in this role, I've had to be a jack of all trades to some degree, because I had some set experience before I took my very first visual effects job on Iron Man 3, but I didn't have a lot. And so it was kind of a scary situation being on set and this giant production that's, a $200 million plus movie, budgeted movie. And there was a lot of things I had no clue how to do, but I observed and asked people how they did things. And so eventually when it came time for my boss to say, hey, who knows how to do this? We need this done. I could raise my hand and say, yep, I know how to do it. I'll do it.
When you become the guy that, like you said, the go-to guy, that's something that's job security.
Yeah, exactly.
It really
is. Exactly true. And it kind of goes back to really wanting it, because if you really want it, you can't let that flame die. It's always got to be burning.
Yeah. Do you spend a lot of time, like, after work is technically done, like, researching stuff so that you're going back and go, all right, I need to learn this so that doesn't happen again? Or
it's true, I do. And, there's a lot of things I need to learn, and I learn from my mistakes all the time. But yeah, there's a lot that, when you go home during the day, you figure out, oh, how can I do this better? And that's kind of the way life is, right?
Totally.
You're always thinking about how you could do things better.
When you went on Iron Man 3, was that like, did you have nerves, or were you just comfortable?
Oh no, I was very nervous.
Like, how do you deal with that when all of a sudden it's like, because it's one thing to do a project that it's just you and your buddies working on something, and then you get put into this environment that's, like you said, high budget, high stress.
It's true. It's scary. And, maybe my first day or week or month on set, I was just kind of a deer in the headlights sometimes, because it's so intimidating. And, I went from basically shooting my good friends outdoors somewhere and making stupid movies to being on set with Robert Downey Jr. and he's pretending like all of his suit pieces are flying on him, and it's part of my job to get tracking markers up so we have an idea of where they're coming from, or shooting witness cameras so we get CG elements so we can triangulate what would be the CG elements flying at him. So it's just it was super intimidating because I didn't know what all that meant at the time. But it's funny because once you learn what things mean, it's actually the same sort of element as when I was shooting stupid movies with my friends, because you're all just trying to tell a good story and have fun and coming up with new ways to do things. You just happen to have a bigger bank account when you're doing the bigger movies, but at its core, it's the same thing. And when you're shooting movies with your friends in the backyard, and oftentimes you need a guy that's operating the boom mic, and you need a guy to operate the Steadicam or whatever, and it's often the same guy. And when you're on the big movies, it's a similar thing where there's people running around trying to get something done, and you got to be those.
Gaff tape still saves the day.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's wild, man. And what you said there is huge. Like, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. You're just doing it.
Yeah.
We can put all this pressure on ourselves that it's almost like you go into... I've had this happen with shows, and I'm sure your dad would say the same thing. Like, you get an opportunity where you've done this thousands of times.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, someone's in the audience, and now you're like, I don't know how to do it, But that's a big thing of just, I think, encouraging yourself and saying, look, I've put in the work, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And also just treating celebrities like people. They're just people.
Very true.
Geek out when you get home that you just, put dots on Robert Downey Jr., but treat him just like a normal dude when he...
Exactly, yeah, that's true. Keeping your cool is an important part of that.
Have you had any, crazy oh crap moments where you're like... I mean, I've done shoots where we recorded for like 4 hours and nobody pressed record on audio, so we got all this useless footage.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, at your level, you guys aren't doing that kind of stuff. But have you had any really scary moments?
Funnily enough, it happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Part of the visual effects team and what we do on set is we take a lot of reference photos and a lot of reference footage because.
Continuity and that kind of thing.
It depends, but usually if. For example, with Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't actually wear a suit on set, of course.
Right.
So the suit is metallic, and we need to create reflections in the metal of the suit.
Okay.
So we shoot things that are called HDR, and so basically you have a camera, and it's on a little swivel, and you're shooting photos, and basically you're creating a bubble. So. For example, if you're online and you're trying to research like buying a house or an apartment, sometimes they have those 360 views where you can tour the apartment before you get there. It basically creates the same thing. So these photos create a view for the artist to see the environment, so they can see what would be reflected off of the Iron Man suit, for example, or what CG element in the shot would actually look like lighting wise, and those sorts of things. So and we do all kinds of different things that have different purposes, but stuff happens occasionally, and our guy will go in there to shoot HDR photography, and he'll miss one or something, or maybe something was wrong with it, and it happens all the time, but you just kind of learn from your mistakes and do better the next time.
Figure out how to, recreate something that was missing on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's wild, dude.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite moments since you've been doing this professionally? Do you have like one of those moments where you're just like, dude, if I was gonna pick About to Break's all about highs and lows. Mm-hmm. Obviously, working on these productions at all is great.
Yeah.
But is there a moment where you're like, this day something happened and was like, I can't believe I get to be a part of this?
Yeah. Honestly, there's so much that's so amazing. On Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, so much of the sets were reconstructed in CG, so there was a lot of we used blue screens, but some of the sets were amazing, and it really, I felt like I was transported onto some spaceship somewhere, because there was zero blue screen on some of those sets, and it made me feel so engaged in the movie, and I just felt so lucky to be able to experience that. And every movie has its things, but it's really cool, and it's cool to be on a movie where there's people walking around in like alien makeup.
It's
and,
rad, dude.
You know, prosthetics and whatever, and it's just that's every day in life. You know,
you have those conversations with your like 12-year-old self where you're like,
yeah,
this is friggin' awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, congratulations, man, we made it to this.
It's true. Yeah, it's really cool. I consider myself to be incredibly lucky.
I was at the Magic Castle last night.
Yeah.
So I'm performing this week. And I just had one of those moments. You know, it was like last couple of days there was some stuff happening. It was like, you know, you can get in like the funk of like, even when stuff is going great, like there's these moments, at least for me, where it's like, I'm upset and I don't even know why. And, you know, you're worried about something you can't control. And I just had one of these moments where I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to my 15-year-old self who like dreamed of just being able to walk into this place.
Yeah.
And just realize like we are blessed, man, to make, and similarly with what you do, it's like we create Santa Claus moments for grown-ups.
Yeah, it's true.
You know? I mean, like you said at the beginning, you're able to allow people to escape, you know, to go into a different world, and sometimes that's therapeutic for people, man.
Yeah,
like,
very much so.
Life is hard.
It can be, for sure, yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be working on a film and I'm just working really hard, I'm getting really tired, and I'll get discouraged. But I love film so much that I'll just go home and watch a show or a movie or something and escape from that. And then I realize, oh wow, this is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to help people.
Oh, that's rad, man.
It's funny because sometimes people will come to me and ask, you know, how do I do it? How do I get to be in the film industry? It's something I really want to do. Or how how do I become an actor and get hired? Or how do I do this or that? And there isn't one answer that works. It's everybody has a different story to tell, and I think that is true with how you pursue your dreams, and you have to kind of be creative and think outside the box. And you know, for me, I moved myself to a tiny little town where I knew something was happening, and I lucked out. You know, I think everybody's story is different, and there's no magic formula to making it. You kind of have to always go after it.
Yeah, and realizing too that like you don't know where or when that opportunity is going to come.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, thank goodness you were prepared. Like, you know, you were prepared mentally, but also like you had studied and, you know, you've been working hard so that when some random person comes up and says, hey, I got this opportunity, you can take advantage of it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And just wanting to do it is not enough. Like, you got to put in the work.
Agreed. Yeah, you always have to man the flame, so to speak. You always have to keep it going and keep it alive and don't give up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen quick sometimes either. It took me a long time. I went through trying to make it in the film industry as a teenager all the way to, you know, I was probably 26 or 7 or something when I finally got a big opportunity.
It's incredible.
So,
man.
you know, I've been trying for a long time, and I went through, you know, a marriage and having a child and all of those crazy things, and it's not impossible to go after it and achieve it no matter what you're going through.
Dude, thank you for doing this, man.
Yeah, of course.
This is really it's encouraging to me to hear you talk and just like your passion for it, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Because that's the thing. That's why we all got into it. You know, whatever your art is,
absolutely,
it's gotta stay. You gotta stay fired up for it, man. So
yeah, and I'm not done. I'm still going. I'm
buddy.
Still reaching for the stars.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now, if people wanna see what you're doing, or what's the best? You got a website?
I don't actually. I don't. I'm pretty low key actually. IMDb, I guess that's the only thing.
That's right. That's right, man. We got to put a bio on there for you.
Yeah, I gotta do something.
You're too busy doing the thing. That's what I love too, man. Like, some people, it's like they got the website and they got all this stuff and they haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like the band that has the T-shirt before they wrote these songs. Well, dude, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. And guys, go check out all these films, man. Check out Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Check out the new Thor movie that's coming out. And I am so excited to tell my daughters that you're going to be working on Mulan, man. They are going to lose their minds.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
So cool.